Hey, this is Eric Anderson. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the training, how to get in the door by going through the mailbox and turn new clients and get new clients calling you by sending them simple letters. Now, before I get really into the training, I have a whole lot of information I'm going to share with you tonight. But the first thing I want to make sure is you do not underestimate the power of what I'm sharing you because of the simplicity of what I'm sharing you. This is extremely powerful marketing tool. There's a reason all the biggest companies in the world are doing it. And there's a reason your mailbox is not empty, okay? Because it absolutely works. So again, make sure you take lots of notes. Watch the video again and again, but again, it's all here. It's all here. And I will answer any questions at the end and we'll go from there. So let's get started. All right. So the question is why direct mail stands out today. Well, it's simple. There's less competition in the mailbox nowadays. There's a whole lot less people mailing. So therefore, obviously, there's less mail in the box. But that's absolutely great for you because you now have an opportunity to stand out in a huge way. Another big reason direct mail stands out is the response percentages and the effectiveness of direct mail compared to, let's say, email. Direct mail is 4 to 10 times more powerful than email. And I do a lot of email. I love email. I do a lot of email. I send a daily email to my prospects and clients, and it works. It's very effective. But what works more powerfully is direct mail. And it's easy to cut through the clutter with direct mail. Right? Because now all of a sudden you stand out in a very unique and powerful way. The good thing and the bad thing about the internet is simply this. Because we're now all viewing all the websites, social media, everything all in the same box, so to speak, right? We're all looking at it on the screen or on our computer or our phone, whatever it happens to be. Everybody looks the same. Now, that's great for some and it impacts others. It doesn't allow you to stand out and be unique. But the power of direct mail is you now take your message off of the screen and you turn it into a physical thing that people can engage with and touch and share and pass along and simply put the shelf life or other forms of communication. If they have an interest in what you have, they may not act, you want them to act on it then immediately, but if they don't, they'll put it around. It's still around. It's still in there. It's still in the vicinity. It's still someplace they could see it. And that's one of the powers of direct mail. And nowadays it's perceived as different. I like to call it, I call it the forgotten marketing tool. But now it's perceived as different when you're using it. And you can reach pretty much anybody, you know. As we're doing this and doing this training tonight, I hate to bring this up, but it's a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy who reached out to some pretty high profile people trying to send them bombs, right? And luckily he was not successful, right? But it shows you that people can be reached, right? And if you can reach them, you can communicate with them. Obviously, you don't want to communicate with them in that way. But sending a simple letter is a powerful way of doing that. So before we get into it exactly like the mail, like what to send and all that great stuff, it's important that you understand the marginal net worth of what a client is worth to you. And the marginal net worth is simply what's the lifetime value of a client. Meaning, so let's say, as a simple example, you go to your favorite restaurant, right? And on average, you spend, we'll say $20. And let's say you go once a week and you've been going once a week, spending $20 for the last 5 years. Okay. Well, the marginal net worth is the entire relationship. Okay. The initial transaction is $20, but the entire relationship, that's where the value in your clients come from, is the ongoing relationships. That's from referrals, repeat business, on and on and on. Okay. Very powerful concept. And you got to understand the concept, because then you understand the true power of using the mail to get clients. And also, what is the client worth to you in the first transaction, right? What is that client worth to you in the first transaction? Those are some numbers you want to fill in. All right. First transaction, lifetime value. And the way you get to the lifetime value is you think about how long you've been doing business with a particular client, and you think about how many transactions, how much business that particular client has given you over the course of the relationship up until this particular date. And that's the lifetime value of the client. And like my longest running client, as I'm recording this, has been with me for, we've been together, I should say, because it's a relationship. We've been together doing business together for the past 21 years, okay? The past 21 years, every single year, I do an event for him, and it's been 21 years strong. And that's not even talking about the other business that has come from that. That's just this client, right? So what a client can be worth to you, once you get him in the door, can be tremendous, can be absolutely amazing, can be absolutely amazing to you. So we're going to show you how to get through the door by going through the mailbox. All right. So you got to understand the marginal net worth of a client. And I use a restaurant as an example because it's a simple example. And also the price points, while restaurants can make incredible money, right? The price points are initially $10, $20, $30, depending on what the restaurant is. So let's say a family of four goes to a local restaurant to enjoy dinner. And let's say that family of four spends $100, right? Not out of line. That's pretty reasonable, okay? For a family of four to spend $100 on dinner. That's the initial, we'll call that the first transaction, right? That same family goes back one more time and spends another $100, okay? So now they've given this restaurant $200, but the initial transaction was $100. The reason I'm sharing this is I'm going to talk about this in a second, and I'm going to come back and use this one as an example. So the question I ask you is this: how often, if every time you went to the bank, you gave the bank a $100 bill and they gave you $200 back, how many times would you make that transaction? The obvious answer is as many times as you can do it, right? As many times as you can do it. And that's the power of direct mail. And we're going to show you how to make that happen using direct mail. Okay. Now, one of the big questions I get a lot is, what can I expect in terms of people responding, response percentages, okay? Well, typically, we're going to try to get much better percentages than this, but typically, right, between 1% and 2% respond. And out of that response, half of those people will make a purchase. Okay, so let's say, as an example, you send 200 letters to really, really strong prospects that could potentially be clients. So based on this math, we'll say 2% respond. So 10% would be 20, right? 2% would be 2. Right? 2 people would respond. Okay. Half of those people would make an investment in your product or service. So that would be 1. Well, the reason I was using the restaurant as an example, right? In this particular case, to send 200 envelopes, right? 200 letters. And I'll talk about this in the next slide, 200 letters would actually be an investment of $100. Okay, so you want to, I'm pointing all this out because you want to make sure the math works in your favor. Now, there's a whole strategy where you could actually go negative. There's a whole strategy where you could just break even, right? But even if you just break even and you only charge a client $100 for whatever it is your product or service is, just $100, right? You break even at that point, okay? So here's the example I was just talking about. 200 letters mailed equals $100 investment in stamps. There's a little bit more of an investment in that because of how you might have the stuff printed off and because of the envelopes and stuff. But we'll just make the math simple and call it a $100 investment, okay? You only need to make $100 from a single response to break even. Anything above that initial $100 is pure profit. And that's the power of direct mail. So Let's say that client I brought in 21 years ago. Okay. Let's say I did not bring them in through direct mail, but let's say I did bring them in through direct mail. Okay. Whatever it cost me to bring that person in, and the initial transaction has the investment is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, people in the stock market would kill. I mean, literally, I mean, we don't want that, but literally kill to get 100% return on your investment. And you could get so much more than that. It's ridiculous. And we'll talk about that. All right. So how do you get in the door? Okay. How do you get in the door? Well, it starts with how you present and how you put together your mailing. And it starts with the envelope. Okay. But first thing you got to understand is how people sort through their mail. And this comes from the great marketing legend, Gary Halbert, who's passed on now, who many people consider probably the greatest marketer who's ever lived and copywriter who's ever lived. And he says it this way: when people sort their mail, you do it, I do it. The way you do it is you do it over the trash can. You do it over a wastebasket. Anything that looks like it's important, you put it in one pile. Anything looks like you don't need it, you put it in the trash. And that's how we sort our mail. Okay. So the big question is, how do you get your information, right, for your soon-to-be client in the pile that they look at and not in the trash? Okay. There's another thing, is how do you actually get it delivered? And the key thing to getting it delivered is making it look like it's something that people are actually expecting to receive. Because if it looks like junk mail, there's some postal carriers that will treat it like junk mail and it will not even get delivered. There's endless numbers of stories of postal workers throwing mail away. And on the mail they throw away, it's the stuff that looks like people are not expecting it. Okay. So you want to set your letter up in such a way, right? And in such a way that it looks like somebody is expecting it. Here's how we do that. First off, you use a number 10 envelope. Okay. Now this is it in its simplest form. There's ways I'm going to talk about how to expand this, but in its simplest form, you use a number 10 envelope. Now you'll notice up in the upper left-hand corner, as you're looking at it, hopefully as I'm looking at it, upper left-hand corner, as you're looking at the envelope, you have your street address, your city, state, zip code. Okay. You'll notice I do not have a company name and I do not have my name. The reason being is when somebody looks at it, I want them to say, who is this from? And when they ask themselves that question, the obvious next step is they have to open it up to figure out who it's from. So that's how you get it opened. That's how you get it opened. It just looks like a letter from one friend to another. Okay. The second thing you'll notice is the person's is their address. Obviously, put their address, and obviously put a stamp. Now, I always use a first-class stamp, and I usually go out of my way to talk with the post office and get those really fancy. When I say fancy stamp, all those stamps they have, this the real colorful kind of big ones. I always like to use that because when you're sending something from one friend, from yourself to a friend, you use what you have laying around, right? Which could be just a regular stamp, it could be a fancy stamp. But this stands out and it just looks personal. And that's one of the secrets. You want your mailing to look personal, okay? Because if it looks like a business communication, right? Not saying that they don't necessarily need it, because a business communication could be a bill. It could be a lot of different things. Okay. But if it looks like a business communication or an advertisement, right, it's easier for them to throw it in the trash. So remember, our initial goal is to get them to open it, right? Get it in that pile of stuff that they go through. Okay. So you might be sending something to a corporation. Okay. So exact same format. The only difference is, you'll notice when I change the screen, it now says company name, attention, the person I'm trying to reach. Again, I'm not using my letterhead. I'm not using my envelope, right? Inside the envelope is a plain white sheet of paper or multiple sheets of paper, depending on how long the letter is, okay? But a plain white sheet of paper, all right? Extremely, extremely powerful. Okay. So when they open it up, what do they see? They see a good old-fashioned letter. Now, there's different ways to approach this, okay? You could use a handwritten letter, but for simplicity purposes and for the fact that we're more than likely sending it to a number of people, okay? You just use white 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And when they open it up, they just see a good old-fashioned letter written from one friend to another friend. Let me give you an example here. So this is a client of mine. She received a letter in the mail, and this is the format that I used. So up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a picture of me. In this case, it says, "Thank you." I'll talk more about this campaign in a second. But notice the smile on her face, and this is somebody that I'm selling something to. So keep in mind, I'm selling something to this lady. Her name is Ann. She's a great, great, great person. But I'm selling something to her, okay? All right, so you'll notice, obviously, that says second letter. You need to think in the term, and you need to think in terms of sending a campaign. And this speaks to the importance of follow-up, okay? You cannot make the assumption that when you send the first letter that they didn't get it, right? Or they did get it, right? You can't make the assumption that they read it and decided not to act on it. Maybe they just put it off to the side for a moment. So you need to follow up, and you follow up with the second letter. The second letter refers to the first letter. And the format that I follow is the second letter says exactly what the first letter says, except there's a sentence that starts off by saying, "I sent you a letter about 10 days ago." So you want to send these letters about 10 days apart, okay? So the first letter, the second letter, and then a third letter, all right? The third letter refers to the second letter, and again, same thing. "I sent you a letter about 10 days ago. I wanted to follow up with you." And the letter is the exact same, okay? Now, this process has made a lot of people a whole lot of money, and it works. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking in the sense that, oh, this isn't professional. This isn't, I mean, you would be shocked at the number and types of people I've been able to reach following this process. Matter of fact, following this process, it's a little difficult to see here, but this is a picture of me with President Jimmy Carter and the governor. And that happened because of this process, okay? So you got to think about it in terms of sending one letter to a friend, okay? So the first letter, second letter refers to the first letter, and the third letter refers to the second. Now, I don't want to complicate this. I want to make this extremely simple for you, but I need to mention it. It doesn't necessarily need to stop at 3 letters. You could send as many as you send as long as the campaign is profitable and it makes sense mathematically for you. So usually, right, the way to do it is you keep sending letters until they stop responding, which could be a while, depending who you're sending it to, right? You keep sending letters until they stop responding, okay? But for simplicity purposes, what I want you to start off with is the 3-letter sequence. First letter, second letter, third letter. Second letter refers to the first, third letter refers to the second. Each letter is the exact same, except on the second and third letter, there's a sentence that says, "About 10 days ago, I sent you a letter." All right. Okay. Now, the way I want you to look at this is you're a salesperson in an envelope. Okay, you're delivering your absolute best message in an envelope. And what makes this so powerful is when somebody is reading a letter from one person to another, the person reading the letter is hearing the person's words in their head. Okay? It's as close as you can get to being in the same room with the person. Well, you are literally in the same room with them, but I mean like physically, being physically you there in the same room with them. But the next best thing is you're in their head. They're reading your message. They're reading your message in their head. And it's an extremely powerful concept. If you could be there face to face, that's great. If you can talk to them on the phone, that's great. Okay. But if you can't do any of that and you want to do it in mass, you are a salesperson in an envelope. And the beautiful thing about this is you could have as many of these envelopes in the world selling your message as you could afford to do. Okay. As you could afford to do. And as the clients keep coming in, the money keeps coming in, you just keep buying stamps and buying more letters. And you could actually scale it extremely quickly. I'm not necessarily going to talk about it in this particular lesson, but I mean, with the mathematics, when I run through the mathematics of this for you on a different lesson, it can scale extremely fast, very, very quickly, just by sending letters. Okay. One of the questions I often get is, what's better, an envelope or a postcard? Well, the answer is it depends, right? It's not that one's better or one's worse. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so let's look at an envelope as, when I said envelope, what's inside of it, the letter, right? You could tell a more complete story. You could tell a complete story. And with that being said, you do not want to try to limit the length of the message because you're trying to condense it to 1 page or 2 pages or something. No, you share as much as you need to share. I have a piece right now that's 15 pages long. Okay. One of my pieces, my first successful piece was 6 pages long. And I don't know how long I've been using that particular campaign. It's been a while now. But that campaign it's always been 6 pages. And yeah, you don't want to concern yourself about the length of the copy. Okay. You just want to make it relevant to the people that you're sharing your message with. Okay. But anyway, so back to envelope versus postcard. Like I said, it depends. Obviously an envelope, the letter inside the envelope, you can tell a much longer story. And the postcard, right? You have a much longer sales message with the letter. The postcard, it's a much shorter message, okay? But it depends on what you're doing. I'm going to give you a campaign here in a second, but it actually depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to do with the postcard. So almost usually when I'm doing a postcard, I'm either going to have them call, right? Or I'm going to have them, because when they call, I could give, they might be calling a pre-recorded message or an automated message line of some sort to hear something. Or I might be using it to follow up the 3-letter sequence. There's lots of different ways, but it just depends on what you're trying to get across. Now, I had a gentleman he came to me, he had some questions because he knew the power of direct mail, but he couldn't understand why his postcards were not working. And I said, well, who are you mailing them to? And he found out he was mailing them to really, really big corporations. Well, a lot of really big corporations actually have mail rooms. And you have to be very aware of not who you're sending it to, like who your target is, but who's receiving it. Let me say that again, not who your target is, but who's receiving it. Because in many cases, and I had a friend of mine absolutely verify that. Right? She absolutely verified who was receiving it. I'm sorry, she verified that a lot of these corporations have huge mail rooms, and what they do is they sort the stuff in the mail rooms. And the challenge with the postcard is in that particular environment, this particular gentleman, his mail was not getting through because they were throwing it in the trash, the postcard in the trash, before it even had an opportunity to get to the correct person. So again, you want to keep in mind not who your target is, but the person that is receiving it. Okay? Not who your target is, but the person that is receiving it. So one solution to that is simply take the postcard and put it into an envelope, right? And again, make the envelope look like I mentioned earlier, so it follows that particular model. So this way, it's pretty much guaranteed to get to the person that you're trying to get it to, okay? But again, it just depends on what you're trying to do versus an envelope versus a postcard. Again, with the envelope, you could tell a more complete story with the letter inside. A postcard is equivalent to Twitter, right? Obviously, you're limited to it. You're limited to what you could say, but you could send them, right? You could use the postcard to send them to a website, to send them to a automated voice message. There's lots of ways, and I'm gonna give you a campaign here. So, all right. So as I said, you want to think in terms of developing campaign. You want to think in terms of developing a marketing campaign. All right. So here's a very powerful marketing campaign. Now, again, I'm not necessarily concerned with being creative. I'm concerned with doing what's effective. So I follow this exact same campaign with different messages depending on who I'm marketing my services to. So in this particular campaign, so remember, we're using a 3-letter sequence, right? Remember, you could have more letters than that, but we're using a 3-letter sequence so that people will receive 3 different communications from us, okay, at minimum. So here's the campaign. So the first mailing is, now notice the envelope, it's a number 10 envelope. It follows the process I talked about earlier. Okay, so in this case, there's the corner card, right? My name is not mentioned. My company name is not mentioned. It's just the address, my address, right? It's better to have a physical address than a P.O. box. I've used both, but it's better to have a physical address. And the city, state, zip code, and obviously who I'm sending it to. Now you'll notice it says, please do not bend, photo enclosed. Now, that's a very powerful phrase on the outside of this envelope, because on the inside, they receive a letter, right? And that letter, there's attached a photo. Now, I'll talk about in a second what the photo can be. But the reason that's on the outside is please do not bend, photo enclosed, is it creates immediate curiosity. And the person receiving the envelope automatically says to themselves, what is it a photo of, right? And the only way you could find out what it's a photo of is to absolutely open up the envelope. So again, this is a very powerful way of getting somebody inside your envelope, because regardless of how you send it to them, if it doesn't get to them, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to work, right? So how do you get it to them? How do you get them inside of it? So again, when they open it up, they find a letter, but attached to the top of the letter, I usually use a paper clip, is a photo. And I use different photos for different messages. So here's one photo. You can't see it, but again, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a picture of me with a Nobel Peace Prize winner and President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, okay? Here's how I use that particular photo in a letter. As I mentioned, it's attached to the top of the letter, which could be 1 page, 2 page, 3 pages, 15. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how long it is, as long as it's interesting, okay? And appeals to what I'm selling them. But the photo simply states, I'm sorry, not the photo, the letter opens up by saying, obviously, you're asking the question, why is there a photo attached to this letter of a guy I've never seen before with Nobel Peace Prize winner and President of the United States, Jimmy Carter? Well, there's 2 reasons. One, I wanted to get your attention, and hopefully I've done that. 2, because you may not know exactly who I am, hopefully the photo with the president will add a little credibility to what I'm about to say to you in this letter. Here's why I'm writing you, right? So that's a very powerful opening, because now the next step is the person has to say, why is this person writing me? And now they start reading the letter. Now, it does not have to be a photo of you and the president, obviously. It could be a photo of anything. So I also use, not obviously this large, but I also use a photo of me and my family for different purposes, right? And it's a photo of my wife, myself, and my twins. And the letter, different letter, obviously, opens up by saying the same thing, right? Obviously, you're asking a question. Why is there a letter of this family I've never seen before included in this letter? Well, there's a couple reasons. First, I wanted to capture your attention. Hopefully, I've done that. Second, because I live in the community that you live in, and I'm a family person like yourself, I thought you might find this letter interesting. Here's why I'm writing you. Okay? Now, again, they're in the letter. So it could be a photo of anything. It could be a photo. When I had my black lab Max, right? I used a photo of Max, right? It could be a photo of anything, but you just got to tie it in to that opening sentence, and perhaps tie it in as to why you're actually writing them. Okay, that's even better. Okay, but the point is the phrase on the outside of the envelope is, please do not bend, photo, and close. You're letting them know there's something of importance and something interesting and something that draws in curiosity, and they have to open up the envelope. So this is the first part, and I'm going to talk about what you actually say in a letter beyond that first sentence, right? Obviously, it's going to depend on what you're offering your soon-to-be client. But this is the first letter in this particular sequence, okay? Now, remember, the first letter, we follow up with the second letter 10 days apart, okay? So the second letter is following the exact same approach. Now, you'll notice the envelope does not say, please do not bend, photo, and close, because I'm not including a photo in this particular letter. In this letter, I'm including, so I absolutely love the dollar store, right? If you've never been to a dollar store before, you need to go, because this is absolutely perfect for our marketing purposes. So there's so many things you could do, but I'm going to use one of my absolute favorites because, again, it just makes sense. I go to the dollar store and I buy a puzzle, right? With 1,000 pieces, 10 pieces, whatever it is, but a puzzle. The more the merrier. And to the top of the letter, I glue, using a glue stick, the puzzle piece to the top of the letter, okay? Now, all it says, again, first couple sentences says, obviously you're asking, why is there a puzzle piece stuck to the top of this letter? It's very simple. This could be the missing piece to the puzzle that you've been trying to solve for a long time. Here's why I'm writing you, okay? Now, again, that's a very entertaining, a very theatrical way, engaging way to get their attention, okay? I've had a number of people call me and say, please keep sending this stuff, right? Now, again, you got to keep in mind, this is somebody that I'm selling something to, okay? Right? Please keep sending this stuff because it's entertaining, it's engaging, it's different, right? It's entertaining, engaging, and different, okay? So now the second mailing, as I mentioned before, next, not including that first sentence, right? And the next sentence says, about 10 days ago, I sent you a letter. I wanted to follow up with you, all right? And then it repeats exactly what the first mailing was, right? So I'm just, when I say first mailing, I'm sorry, first letter. Exactly what the first letter said. I'm just changing the first couple sentences depending on what I'm using at the top of the letter. Now, what this is it's the equivalent of a headline, okay? So usually, right, letter, if you think about newspapers or some sort of article in a mag, whatever, right, there's this nice big headline that draws you in, and then you start reading the article or whatever it happens to be. There's no difference here. You need a headline in your copy. However, a very effective, powerful, sometimes more powerful way of doing it is actually to use what I've shown you so far, right? The puzzle piece and the picture, because that acts as a headline. Okay, that acts as a headline. So that's the second mailing. So remember, the second mailing refers to the first mailing, and the third mailing refers to the second. So in this particular campaign, I'm sending them not a letter this time, but a postcard, right? And the postcard simply says, okay, well, first, you'll notice it says yourwebsite.com/your prospect's name. So that's absolutely your website, whatever your domain name happens to be. One of mine is erictyleranderson.com. And one great thing now with technology and the simplicity of technology, even though it has its challenges, right? But the simplicity of it is it's really easy to make this stuff happen. So what I will do is I will set up a website, right, with my prospect's name, the person I'm going after, right, the person I'm trying to get their attention for whatever I'm trying to sell them, market to them. And I will put their name, attach their name to the website. So when they go to the website, right, it says, there's different ways of doing it. The way I like to do it is with a video, okay? It's simply with a video. And it's a video that simply says, hey, John Davis, this is Eric Anderson. Obviously, you're here. That means you received my postcard. Here's why I'm reaching out to you. And I essentially just share exactly what I shared with them in the letter, in the two other letters that I sent them. Now, when you do this as part of a postcard, because you're limited on space, remember, with a postcard, I take advantage of the limited space and I send them someplace where I can send them a more complete message. In this case, a video. Now, they're very simple. I record the video on my phone and I upload it to the computer and I upload it to the website. If you don't do it, you could have somebody that runs your website. They could do it for you. It's a very simple process. It's not complicated at all. It's just essentially adding an extra page to the website. But the point is, I'm creating a communication with this particular individual, right? And I'm talking through them through multiple channels now. In this case, video, right? Very powerful way to do it. Now, again, when they see their name on a website, again, curiosity gets the best of them. They have to go there. They have to go and see what's going on here. Okay. So again, the postcard simply says, you'll notice there's a website and here's your name there. This is a personalized website for you. Go there now to find out why I've done this. They're going to go there. They're going to go find out. Okay, so that's a very simple campaign. And depending on how many letters you're sending, right? I mean, you could do videos back to back to back, upload, create the websites. And I mean, this is a business, right? We are working here, right? But it's personalized. It's very, very effective. It's very powerful. Okay, so the first letter is simply the picture, right? The second letter is the puzzle piece. Third piece is a postcard sending them to a website. Now, if I'm sending this postcard to a company, just because I may not know their process with their mail, I will stick it in an envelope, right? And do it that way. So, all right. So the other big question is, Eric, what do I say in this letter? It's simply this: you tell a great story. That's it. You tell a story. And what's important is, and this is a mistake that a lot of people make, especially business folks, right? Is they're too busy trying to be grammatically perfect, and they talk with this robotic talk and they write the same way. But what's far more effective is to write, right? In this form of communication is to write the way you talk, right? And when I say talk, I mean sitting around, kicking it, chilling with a really good friend of yours and having that kind of conversation. So you're using slang. And you know, the next thing is people are going to say, Oh, that's not professional, right? Well, one thing you want to learn how to do is commit image suicide, right? What you don't want to be, you want to be effective. You want to be effective. And in the end, we are doing business with other people. And you want to treat other people, like people. And I learned this. It was a big lesson for me one day. I get phones ringing and I answer the phone in this real corporate voice. Hello, this is Eric Anderson. How may I help you? And the client on the other end of the phone, who was actually a client of mine, said, Eric, when we call you, the reason we're calling you is she's a big corporation, right? Works with a huge, huge corporation. And she said, Eric, the reason we're calling you is you're not one of us. That's why we call you, because we want something different. You can just be yourself. You don't have to try to be like us. And I'm telling you, that was an absolute game changer for me, because I realized people are people are people are people. And people change who they are based on the environments they are in. So you want to write in such a way, not trying to be grammatically correct, but trying to be theatrically correct. By theatrically, you just talk the way you just write the way you talk. And when I say talk, meaning you sit down writing like you're talking to a really, really good friend of yours. So don't be afraid of using slang. But the important point is tell a good story. Tell a really, really good story. So one of the, I guess I can't share my screen, but one of the stories here, let me see if I could pull this up here for myself here. Okay, so this is telling a really good story. I'm going to read this letter, and this is what went out to actually a group of about, I think it was 84 people, I believe it was. So, and so just to give you a little bit of background. Well, here, I'll just read it. It'll make sense as I'm reading it here. So, it says, "Hello, John." And in this case, I'm just using John, but my name is Eric Anderson. I'm a former foster youth, and today I speak to foster youth and human service professionals about my experience in foster care. I do this through my with my signature presentation, The Magic of Attitude. Perhaps you've already experienced or heard about one of my programs or workshops at a conference dealing with foster care in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe you've seen one of my television interviews on NBC, CNN, or Fox, sharing my foster care story. Anyway, here's why I'm reaching out to you. The other day, I was at a Thai restaurant for lunch and noticed they had a bowl with the business cards. I'm sure you've seen it before. You put your card in the bowl and perhaps you win a free lunch. I thought about it for a second and thought you'd never hear who wins. You'd never hear who wins that lunch, or for that matter, if anybody ever won anything. Then it hit me. I'm going to have a live drawing for a free keynote presentation, no strings attached. What? Here are the details. I would do the drawing live by taking advantage of webinar technology. It does not matter how far in the future your conference or event is taking place. Once I put it on the schedule, I will be there. I will present my signature keynote presentation, The Magic of Attitude, for your conference or event. Most conferences have breakout sessions for continuing education. So I will also present my 60 to 90-minute workshop. You have a choice between a magic of goal setting or transform the moment. I will also give you 100 physical copies of my top-selling book, The Magic of Attitude. As an extra special bonus, if you like, I will have the cover of the book customized with your conference theme or logo. We'll see the attached book. See the attached picture with this letter. I would also go to a group home in your area and entertain/inspire the kids in the group home. The how and why I'm doing this is the perfect type of story for the media to put on television, radio, and print, or online. I will also pursue publicity leading up to your event. Naturally, I will have you or someone from your organization come on with me to talk about your conference. I will pay all of my own expenses to and from your location. I will pay for my hotel expenses, which will total maybe 2 or 3 days. And finally, perhaps you do not have a conference or event. You have the option to gift this to an organization of your choice. And what is the catch? Zero, nada, zilch. The obvious question is, why am I doing this? First, I love what I do, and I love contributing back to society. This will allow me to benefit others while doing what I was put on this planet to do. Second, you may look at this and say, hey, this guy sounds interesting. From there, you may look at my website at Eric Tyler Anderson. You may look at my website at erictyleranderson.com to do some more research and say, hey, let's contact Eric. He looks like he would be a great speaker for one of our future conferences and events. So here's the deal. On Tuesday, June 19th, I'm headed to Pennsylvania and speak at a conference. Speak at a conference the following day. And I will take 5 minutes and do the drawing live online at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time before I head to the airport. Remember, I'm drawing the name on Tuesday, June 19th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If I do not pull your name from the hat, I will still send you a copy of my top-selling book, The Magic of Attitude. Here's what to do next, right? And what I give them is I give them a link, right? There's a link that they can go to actually register for this drawing. I close it up by saying, have an amazing day. Sincerely, Eric Anderson, magician with the message. And again, I give them the link. And then PS says, I want to make sure everyone has a fair shot. So I will send a couple of reminder letters leading up to June 19th at 9 a.m. If you have not already done so, make sure you go to, and again, I give the link that they could go to sign up, to put their name in the hat while it's fresh on your mind. Also, if you know of an organization that can benefit from this, feel free to forward this letter to that particular person. And then I give a testimonial of what one of my clients has actually said. So now that's a great story, right? It's not necessarily grammatically correct in all the spots, minus my stuttering, right? But it's theatrically correct. Now, also what I did there is you'll notice at some of the beginning, and again, you have to work with what you have. I have some credentials with being on television and stuff, so I want to kind of talk about that stuff to add some credibility to what I was doing. Now, this is an entirely different campaign from what I was talking about with the picture, the puzzle piece, and so on and so on, okay? But it follows the same format as far as telling a great story. The other thing I did there is I gave them an offer that they absolutely cannot refuse. Obviously, they can't refuse it, but I gave them an offer that said, okay, wait, this guy's going to come here. He's going to do a full 60-minute keynote presentation. He's going to pay for all of his travel. He's going to give us 100 copies of his book. He's going to customize the cover of the book for us. He's going to do a workshop. He's going to pay for his own hotel, pay for all the, I mean, for somebody having a conference, right? That's an absolutely fantastic offer. And it's something that they cannot refuse. If they have a slot, they're going to try to figure out how to put you in that particular slot. Now, it doesn't matter that in this case, it's a keynote presentation, right? It can be anything. But the point is, it's an offer that they cannot refuse. If you're a restaurant, right, it could be a dinner for two, and we'll buy you a bottle of wine when you come into our restaurant, right? But you want to make it so good that somebody reading it is going to say, I got to do that, right? It just makes sense. I got to do that. So in the particular example that I just gave you, that's a real life campaign that happened, okay? And I follow I've done it a number of different times. And similar things have happened each time. In this particular case, right? So remember early on, I said you have to know your numbers. You have to know what it cost you, right, to acquire a client and the marginal net worth of a client, like how much that client is worth to you over the course of the relationship. So in this particular case, what I was looking for, right, in this particular case, what I was looking for was not necessarily the free presentation, right, not necessarily trying to make money off of the free presentation, but I did. It's more so the excuse, the reason to reach out to the other people and the other business I got from it. Okay. So in this particular case, what happened is I drew the name, called the people up and said, look, you're the winner. And she was on, she saw it actually happen. But you're the winner. And she was, I mean, you want to talk about somebody excited. right? They're telling everybody we want a free keynote presentation, right? They are excited about this. And in the end, they ended up paying for the hotel, right? And they also ended up giving me a stipend that ended up making me money in the process. It wasn't my full fee or anything, but it paid for the travel, me getting there and all this stuff. And the reason that happened is it's just a basic psychology, and it's called people feel like they need to reciprocate. When you're doing something for them, they want to do something for you, okay? And without getting into the entire story, the state director heard what I did, and she essentially demanded that they give me something, right? And it was a stipend that, I wasn't looking for it, right? Was not looking for it. But I will say I know it's happened before, okay? I know it's happened before. So psychology, being human, does not change. So the point here is, we go back a slide, you want to tell a great story, okay? And you want to give them an offer that they cannot refuse. And that's going to change from person to person, from business to business, okay? But you want to give them something, you want to give them a gift, right? Something that they look at and they just say, okay, I got to respond to this. And that's how you beat that 1%, 2% response that we talked about earlier. But as I had mentioned, I calculate everything that I do at a 0.005. So that's a 0.5% response. So if I can make money at a 0.5% response, but a 0.5% response, then I'm good. Okay. And if you start to run the numbers, and I'll talk about some of the math, not necessarily on this video, but I'll talk about the math on the video that talks about math of why this works so well. It's a monster. It's powerful. And believe me, I get way better than a 0.5% response. Okay. So again, the key is, right, tell a great story, offer they cannot refuse. So let's talk about mailing lists. How do you find these folks, right? Well, first off, if you're not creating your own list of customers and not taking advantage of your own list of customers right now, you are absolutely losing money. I remember reading in the book, How to Master the Art of Selling by sales trainer Tom Hopkins. He essentially said at some point in the book, when you hit pay dirt, you keep digging, right? You dig and dig and dig until you can't dig anymore. And your own list of customers is essentially pay dirt. Maybe not the best way of saying it, and with people that are giving you money, but is essentially pay dirt. And what a lot of people do is they have people that have made an investment in them, right? They already know what you have. They assume you're offering a quality product or service. They like what you have. But what most business owners do, is they're off to the next person. No, what you want to do is keep going back to your own customers again and again and again and offering them something. And you'll notice they will keep giving you money. They'll keep giving you money because they already know, like, and trust you. And that expense, right, or better yet, that investment of acquiring that customer in the first place, you're not making that investment every time you communicate with them now. You've already got them as a customer, right? So one of the biggest investments you'll make in business is acquiring a customer. So when you get a customer, you want to make sure you keep going back to them with offers and different things. But again, you tell a great story, you give them an offer that you follow the same format, offer they can't refuse. You make it make sense for them. You make it interesting. You make it entertaining for them, okay? So you want to make sure you take advantage and use your own list of customers. And if you don't have a list of customers, if they're on pieces of paper scattered around your office, wherever they're at, you put them together, you put them in an Excel file, and you start communicating with them, okay? I showed you this letter earlier, but this is one of my customers, okay? And in this particular campaign, this is basically, obviously she looks very happy. Okay. But also keep in mind, this is somebody that I'm selling something to at the same time. Okay. So what this particular campaign was about is I told a whole story about, I looked up the other day and I realized it's been 25 years and I've been 25 years that I've been in business. So I thought I'd send you a communication about that. I thought I'd send you a letter about that. And this whole letter goes on to talk about, because I've been in business 25 years and you've helped make that happen, I really appreciate that. I want to send you a free copy of my top selling book, The Ultimate Passionpreneur. Again, giving them a free gift. At the same time, because of I've been in business 25 years, I'm also offering you for any show that you have coming up in the future, no matter how far in the future, a $250 discount off the last fee that we work together on, right? So I hope that makes sense. So in my particular case, they're bringing me in for a presentation in this particular, business, the presentation, a speaking engagement, a show, or something along those lines. So I'm telling them whatever the last fee was, you could now have it, assuming we're doing pretty much the same thing, you could have it at that minus $250. Okay. The stipulation is you pay everything up front. Okay. But that was it. And that was a massively successful campaign. And matter of fact, because I sent this to all my clients, clients had already had books, events scheduled with me, called up and said, Eric, I know we already have something scheduled with you, but can we take advantage of this? I said, sure. Like why wouldn't I let them take advantage of it, right? I said, sure, you can take advantage of it. And they sent me the rest, because they, are sending me deposits, but they sent me the rest of the money for the event and gave them the opportunity to save a few $100. And it's a win-win-win for everybody. It's a powerful, powerful thing to do. And in this case, that whole thing was stimulated by, in this case, my own customer list, right? I told a great story and I sent it out to them. Extremely powerful thing to do. And I don't know what I stopped calculating return on investment on these things. But put it this way, at one point, this is years ago when I was still calculating return on investment, I don't know, I think stamps were 42 cents or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what they were at the time. And that 42, I sent the letter, right, to one person following the model I'm giving you here, right? Following the model that you invested in. And that one 42-cent letter produced a $4,000 initial sale. So the first transaction was $4,000. Okay. It was more like $4,500, but we'll say $4,000. Now, keep in mind, if I just made 84 cents on the event, I would have made 100% return on my investment. $4,000. Okay. So whatever the return on investment, whatever that is more than 100%. Okay. It's more than you could get in the stock market. Believe me on that. Trust me on that. All right. So the second list that you want to have is prospects, is people that have expressed interest in your products or services, but just did not move forward for whatever their reasons were. Okay. But they've expressed interest. That person still has a lot of value to you. So you got to go after them, right? You got to keep going after them until, as some people say, they buy or die. Okay. You keep going after them because they've expressed an interest. They didn't just call you, email you just to be playing around. There was something there that attracted them to you, and they chose not to move forward for a variety of different reasons. Okay. So that's also a list of people that you have to communicate with. Okay. And then there's your soon-to-be clients. Now, this is where you can really start to scale and grow your business exponentially in a huge, massive way. Okay. So you got your core clients, right? You got your clients, you got your prospects, people that have expressed some sort of interest in you, right? But now we can start going after people that could really, really explode our business and grow our business massively. And the truth is, with what I'm about to share you, the problem you're going to run into is you could only do so much business. Okay. well, I should say, depending on what type of business you're in, you're only going to be able to do so much volume. But it can be a lot more than you're doing now following this process. And again, I don't know exactly what business you're in, but trust me, this works regardless of what type of business you're in. Okay. So we're going to talk about your soon to be clients. Now, there's ways to get lists together. You could pull together, actually call together your own list. Meaning you could go online, you could go through the old yellow pages, there's ways you could pull stuff together. Okay. One very effective way of doing that is I found a list when I say list, a group I was trying to contact, and I wanted to enter them into an Excel file. And to me, the most tedious thing on the planet is sitting down, typing into Excel. That's not my superpower. So I went to Upwork, which is one of the freelance sites. And if you're not familiar with it, it's upwork.com. And it's basically people that have different skill sets. And you post a job on there, right? You post a job, and somebody basically applies for the job. You hire the person, and they do whatever task that you need done. In this particular case, it was somebody I'd already worked with before on Upwork. I've been using them since they were named a different company entirely. And I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, Jan, I have this. Can you go to this website and download all these names and put them into an Excel file for me?" Or type. She said, and I just sent her an email, right? Well, I don't know how many names it was, maybe 200 or something, 250, something. It was a lot. When I say a lot for what I was, it was more than I wanted to do. And she emailed me back about an hour and a half later and said, "Oh, Eric, I'd love to do the job for you. Matter of fact, I already did it. Everything's attached." And that was a $20 investment on my part, right? Gave her $20. She knocked it out because that's her superpower. That's what she likes to do. And now they're an Excel file. Now I'm in a position to be able to mail them. All right. So you could call your own list together by going online and finding different lists. It's some research, right? But it takes some time. But it's a powerful way because you know exactly what you're looking for. And one way I like to do it is I type in, I go to Google, whatever search engine I'm using, usually Google, and I type in what I'm looking for, and I use different phrases like PDF, right? And what happens is it starts to pull this stuff together. When I say together, it starts to pull information that you usually would not find. And when you start to just kind of run through some of that information, you'd be shocked at what you can find. So that's how you cull a list together, okay? You just kind of go online. You could go to people's websites. That's one way of doing it, right? What's also great about direct mail is you'll notice as time has gone on, it's more challenging to find people's email addresses online, but you can still easily find their mailing address online, and usually a contact person, right? Because you could just mail them, right? People are hiding their email address, but they keep their physical address wide open. And even if they don't, it's still ways to find it. And I'll share that with you in a second. So you could pull together your own list by just doing some research, okay? One of the companies I used is called Cantor Media. And huge company. And to give you an idea of what they do, this is somebody that they have a bunch of people that own mailing lists, and you pay Cantor Media to get access to the people that own the mailing list. And then when you find a list that you like, you pay them for the list and they send it over to you. Okay. So that's kind of how Cantor Media works. Now, again, we're not worried about investment. We're worried about return on investment, right? So it doesn't matter how much it costs us. It matters how much we're going to make off of this. So Cantor Media, they have different price points for different things that they offer, right? But I suggest you go to their website, look around. But it's a fantastic thing. And here's what I want to point out. Anything that you could illustrate anything that you could voice, any group that you could say you want to find, you'll be able to find them. You can find, there is a mailing list out there for somewhere, okay? And use companies like Cantor Media to find them. But if you could voice exactly who you're going after, I mean, the more precise you are, the better. So when I say precise, if you like women between the ages of 20, your best clients are between ages of 27 and 35 that live in Las Vegas, that live in this particular zip code, that have red hair, that are about this tall, right? You could find a list or something very, very similar to that, okay? Also, what's great about Cantor Media is they'll tell you what the people have bought, right? What the price point was of the thing that they bought. And when I say Cantor Media, not necessarily Cantor Media, but the mailing list people that they have. And they'll tell you when's the last time that they bought it, on and on and on and on. So you get a lot of information. And it's a very powerful thing to do. So as you know, look, I use Facebook ads, I use Google ads, I do all of that stuff. I believe in doing it all. At the same time, just decide who your best prospects are. And the best way of doing that is look at your previous prospects, people that have already given you money, and just find a bunch of people like those people and connect with them. Okay. So that's Cantor Media. That's a paid service. Nextmark is very similar to Cantor Media, but it's you could get an idea of the mailing list before you actually make the investment. And I'm not sure exactly what Nextmark, how their business model works, but I'm sure they're working with the list brokers and making a profit there somewhere. But again, you could go to their website, look around, and you'll just kind of explore a little bit, and you'll start to see how to kind of find people and more importantly, find who exactly you are looking for. All right. Let's see. Another company called Info USA. They're kind of a compiled list company, but they're huge, huge. And their stuff is always up to date. I forgot how many calls they make a day, but it's a lot of phone calls a day to keep all this stuff up to date. And everything from every business, US, Canada, you know, every homeowner, I say homeowner, I mean consumer, everybody is in their stuff. And they have what's called selects. All the mailing list companies have selects, and the select is exactly what it sounds like. You select this, and this. Like, so might be between this age, they might be a homeowner, they might read this type of magazine, okay? And then live in this particular zip code, and they can find a list for you of those particular people or companies, whatever it happens to be. You can find board members on companies, you can find CEOs, it's endless, right? Now, there's another little advanced strategy I'm going to share with you too. I want to be transparent. I want you guys to benefit from this, totally benefit from it. Once you know who you're going after, right? So I say you go through the door by going through the mailbox, right? You could find the CEO of a company, right? You could find this person, and then so you know who they are, and then you could find another address for them. You don't have to necessarily go through the company. You could go through their home address, right? And contact them that way, right? So there's different ways of doing this. You don't have to, and what's great about it is you have options. It's very flexible, okay? So, and when you start kind of exploring this world of mailing lists, you'll start to see all these doors open up and all these powerful things open up. It's an extremely powerful thing. So that's Info USA. So here's what I say. I say you set a goal to mail X number of letters every single week, okay? Mail X number of letters every single week. Now, depending on what, you know, your financial situation is, things change, you know. I know millionaires and, you know, a millionaire one day, next day you're not. So I get it, right? So you start where you're at and you go buy some stamps. And usually the way I do it is, let's say I want to mail, let's say I have enough, let's say I only have enough money for 100 stamps, okay? Which is $50, okay, based on what stamps are at this particular recording. So instead of saying 100, because I want to follow the three-step letter concept, because I want to tie it together, I'd look at the best prospects and send 33 contacts a mailing on the first mailing, 33 in the second, 33 in the third. And usually what you could expect is the first mailing will get whatever response it gets, okay? The second mailing and the third mailing will pretty much total the first mailing in response, okay? But remember, we're concerned with return on investment. And also what will happen is there's the trickle effect that for whatever reason, and it's always happened to me, people get a letter way down the road someplace and you know, they didn't actually receive it initially for whatever the reason is, and they got it 2 months later, right? Or they just happen to open it 2 months later, and you'll have somebody calling you 2 months down the road for a particular campaign. So that's the trickle effect. But overall, right, you want to set a goal of how many letters you want to mail every single week. And the truth is, it just depends on how much money you have, like how many stamps can you buy. But you start where you're at, and you just build from there. And the truth is, you'll probably, before you run out of, you'll either run out of names, right? Because it may be a really, really tight niche market, which is fine. Or you'll run out of the amount of work you could actually go do. But I'm telling you, this has the opportunity to create so much work for you in your line of work that you won't be able to do it, because it's just a very powerful marketing tool that I call the forgotten marketing tool that, again, the big players in business are doing it. I love the irony in the fact that I love Google is using direct mail to sell business or to sell people on their online ads platform. I absolutely love that. And I first noticed it when I got a what's called a endorsed letter from Vistaprint, right? Google had a letter in with a Vistaprint promotion selling their AdWords campaign and giving me, I think, I don't know, it was $100 or $50 a gift, right, for me to try them out. And then, but it's powerful. But what I love about the irony is they own the online space in this game, but they're still using direct mail to generate a whole lot of business. And trust me, they know their numbers. And then it's simply a matter of rinse and repeat. And you just follow the process. You follow the process, and it works. And as I said, you don't let the simplicity of it, because that's what I did. When I first heard it, I said, this is too simple. And part of it was I just invested all this money in all these brochures and all this different stuff. And I was determined to go through it, right? And because I thought that's what worked. And I've gotten more business from sending letters in plain white envelopes than all that brochure stuff, right? I mean, way more business. And I do it across different businesses. So a lot of people know me from one particular thing, and that's great. But there's other areas that I have a couple businesses in, and I follow, very, very similar process. So I do see if anybody has any questions here. It looks like in a strange way, 1 or 2 people are here. I want you to type in any questions that you have. And I know I've answered a lot. I know people are coming on at different times here. And I want to answer any questions you have concerning using, and you can just type whatever you have into the chat box. And we'll see what pops up. All right. Let me give it a second here. Let's see here. Do not see any questions here. Let me turn off the slide presentation. And yeah, but that's it. I mean, it's a powerful, powerful way of generating business. It's an easy way to generate business, and it works across the board. So regardless of what kind of work you're doing, right? this is a great, fantastic way to get people to call you. And it depends on what you're doing. So sometimes I'm just trying to set up a meeting, right? Sometimes I'm presenting full price. So I know when somebody calls, they are highly, highly qualified, right? I mean, they're pretty much calling to actually make it happen. And those are the ones I probably send out the most of, but it's also great. But your business is different. You might, your sales process, your sales cycle might be a little different than mine. Okay. So you're going to have to go through a different process, but getting that initial meeting with somebody is incredible. And the story I love to tell is this really, really big company, huge corporation. The marketing director of the company reached out to me because I reached out to him using a simple letter, right? Reached out to him using a simple letter. And in this case, I didn't even follow up with him. Okay. I just sent the letter and he called me 2 weeks later. He says, I got your letter. What you're saying is extremely interesting. I'd love to set up a meeting with you. So we start setting up this meeting. So then I get a phone call from the advertising agency. Now, this is a big company, so they're dealing with an advertising agency. And the advertising rep calls me, and she had to kind of contain herself, but she's livid, right? And she actually she said, how did you even get a hold of him? And she's really upset because now here it is, this little guy, me, right? Is getting this meeting with this big, this big company, and her advertising company, who's also a very big company, she now actually has to kind of facilitate and make this happen. And she was just pissed. I mean, she was upset that this was happening. And this is, it's all relative, but this is a 6-figure contract on the table for me. And, but she could not understand how I got in the door, right? How I bypassed her, got to the guy I needed to get to, and actually got the meeting to make happen. And I wasn't trying to bypass her. It wasn't about that. I would just, here's the person I need to talk to about what I'm trying to do. Let's chat, let's talk. And, but because they're dealing with an advertising agency, they kind of went through a process. And she just could not understand how I got in the door. Well, I got in the door because I went through the mailbox. And that's how you do it. Take advantage of this, use it. It's absolutely powerful. And share your success stories with me. And, if you want me to kind of consult with you on this, kind of walk you through a campaign, feel free to reach out to me. You have my information since you made the investment in the program, and we will go from there. So that's this part of the training. Continue with the rest of it. Enjoy and have a fantastic day.